With all of these issues that shape the year 2021, how do legal practitioners assess the judiciary? I have the views of a senior advocate of Nigeria and Queen's Counsel, Professor Fidelis Oditah. Prof, the end of a year always provides a good opportunity to reflect on what has been so as to make projections for a new year. I want you to look back at 2021 and what has happened in the judiciary and give us your assessment of how well the judiciary fared. What were the major shortcomings that you identified?
Thank you, Shola. This is a big question. I wish I kept a diary of events which affected the judiciary. But taking a broad overview, I'd say that 2021 has been, in many respects, a peculiar year. It's a year which was affected in part by the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a year, or it is a year, which has been affected also by the prolonged JUSUM strike. It's been a year where we have seen the courts, especially those in Lagos State, struggle with the use of technology. It is a year in which we've seen, as we've also seen in the past, widespread misuse of interim ex parte reliefs. It's been a year which, in terms of the work ethic of the judiciary, has noticed very little change. So on the whole, I must say there's very little to be cheerful about in 2021. But beyond that, it's also a year, although it's not directly affected, it's not directly affecting the performance of the judiciary, but it's a year in which we've seen very questionable judicial appointments. So as I said earlier, there's very little to cheer in 2021.
Let me touch on one of the things that you talked about, the work ethics of the judiciary. Can you, expatiate on that?
Yes. In most places that I have litigated in, most jurisdictions, the judiciary sits at the appointed time. So if you take London, for example, the courts sit at 10. Everyone knows that the court sits at 10. When you turn up at 10, the court will sit at 10, or a minute past 10, or at most 2 minutes past 10. But in Nigeria, in many cases, regrettably, the judges don't turn up to sit at 9. Very many of them sit at 10, some at 10:30. In some cases, you turn up in court and you'll be told that this court will not sit until 11. No prior notice, no regard for your time, no regard for the use of a public resource, which a court is. And you just find that some judicial officers act as if the court is their personal fiefdom, where they can lord it over everyone. Having said that, of course, there is a significant minority of judicial officers who are very diligent. They turn up on time, they deliver their rulings and judgments on time, they are appropriately courteous to counsel and to the litigants. But unfortunately, those judicial officers are very much in the minority. So there's a big problem with work ethic. People just act, judicial officers act with impunity. And I think it's the same in discipline, which characterizes much of public life in Nigeria.
For the majority whose work ethics are questionable, I suppose that the responsibility lies with the National Judicial Council to shape them up and discipline them and make sure that they deliver. What would you suggest? What happens with global trends? How is this issue handled globally?
I think it's first a matter of personal discipline. If you instruct me to do a case for you, I always turn up at the right time. I don't need anyone to sanction me to turn up on time. It's just a matter of personal responsibility. You are appointed, very many of them, or if not all of them, lobbied for their positions. So the discipline starts with the person. You don't have to wait for someone to tell you to do the right thing. As an adult, all judicial officers are adults. The last time I checked, I did not see any minor. I did not see any school kids that required parental intervention to do the right thing. They should start first by setting themselves a reasonable personal standard. Once you set yourself a reasonable personal standard, then you'll be able to ratchet up your own standard. We cannot expect the NJC to be telling judges when to sit. Everybody knows when to sit. The judges have already been told when to sit. It's just like saying everybody knows the law. You don't expect to be told every day you must obey the law. You just have to comply. That's the first thing. And where they fail to sit on time, there should be appropriate remedies. And I say this because we also sit as arbitrators. And notwithstanding the logistical and other difficulties that people point to, especially in Lagos, the tribunals manage to sit at the time set, whether it is 9 a.m., whether it is 8 a.m. occasionally, whether it is 9:30 or 10 a.m., they sit on time. There is absolutely no reason why the courts cannot sit on time. So the discipline that one needs to see and the improvement in the court system must start with that basic work ethic, where the judicial officers turn up on time and take their work seriously. Don't see it as something which is a position of prestige without any responsibility.
I hear what you say, Prof, about self-discipline. Is it also an issue of discipline when judges entertain cases, courts of coordinate jurisdiction entertain cases of same parties on same subject matters as we have seen in the recent past? And what do you make of the way that the NJC has dealt with this issue, barring 3 judges from promotion for a period of 2 to 5 years? Do you think that that punishment is adequate?
Well, first of all, I think in a country where we have very low expectations of ourselves and of our public officials, we must welcome that small step as an important step for mankind and womankind in Nigeria. Otherwise, one would have said it's woefully inadequate in many respects. First of all those ex parte orders and the sanctions imposed all arose from the secondus litigation, the chairmanship of PDP. So there is no other example. All of them concern the struggle for power, more or less, between power blocks within the People Democratic Party, especially between Mr. Wike and the secondus that he more or less imposed on the People Democratic Party as their chairman. So it is very difficult to extrapolate from that limited intervention that we're now going to see more active intervention by the NJC. That's point number one. The second is that by saying these judges are not going to be promoted for 2 to 5 years, that's just a little rap on the knuckle. Who says that they are due to be promoted within 2 to 5 years? Where does a high court judge get promoted to? What about those who have been sitting for 15, 20 years without promotion? Is it because they made conflicting ex parte orders? The reality is that judges get promoted in Nigeria at any rate to the higher bench where there is a vacancy in their geopolitical zone. So if, for example, someone has already been appointed from your geopolitical zone, until another vacancy arises, which might be 7 years, it might be 10 years, there'll be no question of vacancy. So I don't understand how you can say you won't be promoted within 2 or 3 or within 2 or 5 years. It's a different system where, say, maybe the promotion they made is increasing their pay. I don't know what their pay is, whether like public servants, they increase their salaries annually or periodically, and therefore there won't be any increase in your salary or your allowances. But if promotion means promotion to higher judicial office, it seems to me that that is almost like a little rap on the knuckle, not much effect at all. But as I said at the beginning, because we're in a country and we're people of low expectation, people have applauded that as an important development. Unfortunately, I cannot bring myself to regard that as an important development.
What, in your view, would have been an appropriate punishment?
An appropriate punishment would have been asking them to retire. There are a number of qualified lawyers in Nigeria seeking appointments to the judicial office, where you see people who have erred not through inadvertence, because anyone can make a mistake, but you see someone who has engaged in deliberate wrongdoing. You have to ask the person to leave the judiciary, because by making the orders in question, the person has shown that he or she is not fit to be a judge.